Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. Hope you guys are doing well. In this video, I'm talking about one of my favourite franchises and its new release, Scream 6. Scream 5 hit cinemas in January of last year, and here we are just over a year later, watching its sequel, Scream 6. When this film was in production, I was sceptical about it. I thought it's being produced way too quickly after the last film, and the fact that Neve Campbell wasn't going to be involved in this one definitely did break my heart a little, and I was going into this film, kind of with low expectations and this sort of element where I want to support this actress, but also I love these films, so it was very much a split sort of decision going to watch this and sort of how I felt, but I love these films so much I had to go and see it. Scream 6 carries on from the last film. We see our main characters now heading off to New York City to go to university, and we once again see Ghostface pop up again. They think they can escape the traumatic experience that they've been through as a family and as friends. However, Ghostface is back and following them in New York City. Scream 5 definitely felt like the film which encapsulated a lot of what everyone loved about the franchise so far and felt very much similar to the first film, whilst introducing a lot of new characters. It had legacy characters that were brought back in for the nostalgia, whereas this film definitely felt like a new chapter, making these younger characters are definite leads sort of going forward within the franchise. What was interesting about this film and sticking with these characters as the main and not really focusing on those legacy characters was that we were able to learn a lot more about the relationships, especially between the two sisters. Sam and Tara's relationship definitely grows a lot more, and we're allowed to see that sort of characterization grow a lot more in this film. They talk a lot about trauma, which I know is a massive thing within horror anyway, but when I was watching it, I couldn't help think of the Jamie Lee Curtis edit where she talks about trauma in the last Halloween film. I kept thinking about that clip every time they mention the word. But genuinely, it is a great thing to see in cinema, having these characters talk about such a personal thing that lots of people can relate to, but having it in that horror setting makes it a lot more attainable, I think, to a lot of audience members. I'm sure I wasn't alone in this, and many of the Scream fans were so excited to see Kirby come back into this film. A lot of people wanted to see her come back in Scream 5, or if not, they definitely wanted to see her in the next film, and luckily they listened to the fans and they put her in this film, so it's great to see her return to the franchise, but the wig was just terrible. What I loved about Scream 5 was that they were able to combine both CGI and practical effects to create these really sort of gory and violent murders, and they continued that again in Scream 6. There's a lot of really sort of shocking things that left me gasped and almost laughing because I was like, whoa, that was not expected. And the camera's not afraid to shy away from that because they have the capabilities of things like CGI to sort of show you those more brutal impacts. So I think that was a great element that they continued within this film as well. As I said previously, I went into this film with fairly low expectations. I thought it was rushed and I thought my heart wasn't really in it, especially with Neve Campbell not being in it. But genuinely, I did have a lot of negatives after watching this film. What I felt like it was missing a lot of was the campiness and the humour. Obviously, that was very familiar with Wes Craven's versions of these films. However, I felt we had a lot more humour in the last film as well. There were some comedic parts, of course, don't get me wrong, where I was actually laughing out loud, and they had some great sort of social commentary, as they always do. But it was just missing something, and it felt quite serious, especially those more character-driven moments where Tara and Sam were talking about trauma again. Of course, they're relevant to have, and that really adds to the character. But I just think generally it was lacking some of those more comedic elements. But maybe that's something where a character like Dewey would definitely sort of step in and add those moments. The Scream franchise is known for its opening sequence. However, this one, it had my interest and its sort of twists and turns, but it didn't really work for me. It's definitely not my favourite in terms of the beginning of the films. It's definitely sort of down there. Obviously, I think Scream 1 and Scream 4 have really strong openings. This one just didn't really work for me that much. I understand there's the idea of suspending your disbelief for films, but when there's a character that's been stabbed about 30 times, is still able to crawl back into a scene at the end and sort of walk up and say, oh, is everything okay? Then I'm not really sort of believing the situation. I think they sort of use that too many times in this film. There's many characters get injured that you're like, would they survive that? So I thought it was a little bit extreme in some of those sort of attempts to suspend your disbelief. I wasn't fully invested in that. So in the next part, I'm going to talk about some spoilers, so make sure you skip ahead to this point if you don't want to hear those. Now, one of my biggest gripes with the film is the reveal of the killers. Normally, you can't really predict it, or there's a couple of people it could be. But with this, I very much suspected it was going to be Ethan, and then obviously it was revealed to be Quinn. Again, I'm okay. I didn't really think it was going to be her because we saw her die, or did we? I don't know, predictable in some ways, but also disappointing. And obviously the police officer was involved, and you sort of got that inkling a little bit earlier on with certain phrases that he would say, or, wouldn't act upon certain moments. And then obviously they omitted their connection to Richie, who was in the last film, who was one of our killers. And I didn't really like this connection because it sort of derives away from, it's always connected to Woodsboro and the female sort of protagonist, but it felt that it was a very loose connection and maybe wasn't one of the strongest ones that they've had in terms of a reveal of a killer at the end of the Scream films. So I didn't really love it. I wasn't sort of shocked by it at all. It wasn't one of my favourites. So all in all, I did enjoy this film. I know I'm saying a lot of negatives there, but I did enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it because it's the Scream franchise and I love it. But this one just didn't hold up to the amazing films we've seen before. I think it needs a bit more tightening in terms of its script in the third act. There's some cinematic moments that just don't work for me. Saying that, I did enjoy it and I would watch it again. Of course I would. I'm going to watch it again. But I was just a little bit disheartened that I was like, oh, I actually don't like this one that much. So yeah, it's good, but it's not great. So I'm going to give Scream 6 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching this review of Scream 6. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I would love to check those out. How does it rank in terms of the rest of the Scream franchise? For me, it's sitting just above Scream 3. So let me know your thoughts down below. I will check those out. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon for another popcorn chat.